clearly this is a big difference compared to the first 7 weeks of the war. But what else would you expect the Israelis to be doing in terms of a more precise, more targeted military operation?
Yeah, I mean, already what they've done is historic for me as a scholar of urban warfare across time. The issuing of these maps. Now we learn that they're using AI, artificial intelligence, and all data they have to determine the density of places, and that's driving. Usually, intelligence of where the enemy is drives operations. But by giving out this information, they're also telling Hamas where not to be. So it's really fascinating what they're trying to do. Of course, it's hard in execution.
Well, with that in mind, here's how the Israelis, actually, you touched on this, decide which areas receive evacuation orders. Israeli soldiers and reservists working on a military base about 40 kilometres from Gaza process information on population movements using data from mobile phone, radio and television signals, as well as open source information from local Telegram groups. This helps generate a colour map showing the projected population density of Gaza's residential areas. And once they have that, they know which areas to order the evacuation from. So is that something which is unique to Israel? Has anybody else done this before?
Absolutely unique. I mean, in Ukraine, I've heard of like the city administration using the cell phones to know how many people are left in the environment. But a military usually relies on aerial intelligence or things that can see within certain areas. So combining all forms of intelligence like this to include how many cell phones are in a certain area really is the state of the art on trying to, what we call civilian harm mitigation, implement steps to avoid civilian harm as much as possible. It's unique.
And as this military offensive heads south into Gaza, the World Health Organization is raising the alarm over healthcare, issuing a statement which read in part, intensifying military ground operations in southern Gaza, particularly in Khan Yunis, are likely to cut thousands off from healthcare, especially from accessing a Nasser medical complex and the European Gaza Hospital, the two main hospitals in southern Gaza, as the number of wounded and sick increases. Yeah, I raise this because the reality is, regardless of how precise or targeted the IDF will be, there is still much worse to come for Gaza. This is still a war, and there's a lot more destruction and, sadly, probably a lot more death to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the problem with the alternatives to allowing Hamas to continue what it's doing, to include the rockets, and you're ruling the Gazans the way they have for the last over a decade. The more closer this gets to a military accomplishment of the mission, the more peace and betterment for the citizens I truly believe will happen.
Yeah, they've been in Gaza. Hamas has been in power since 2006. They seized control in 2007. People in Gaza didn't have a choice. They didn't vote for him, most of them anyway. Major John Spencer, thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.